My guest today is really a face that needs no introduction, Patricia Nash. If you don't know who she is, you know her bags. And I'm so excited to have you because you have such a message for women and women who want to start something big in their life. So first, we're not going to start first, Patricia, by talking about handbags. Let's talk about, you actually had everything worked out. Would have been like this big baker. Let's talk about how everything started entrepreneur-wise. How did things start for you?
Oh, yes. It's funny you brought that up. I wasn't even thinking about that today. Well, when I was 14 or 13 years old, I started working at a Baskin-Robbins store doing, scooping ice cream. And they used to make ice cream cakes there. And the owner there, I was kind of intrigued by that and started making ice cream cakes on that. Well, that elevated to making regular cakes. So then I took a higher paying job in a grocery store working in the bakery and learned how to make wedding cakes and was good at it and decorating it. And my creativity would come out in this. And it elevated to wedding cakes, which is what I did to earn money while I went to school. Yeah, that was beginning. And I thought I was going to open up a bakery. In fact, I went and registered patty cakes.
Patty cakes.
Patty cakes. Isn't that clever?
That is very clever.
And I remember going to the bank and my father saying, okay, honey, but this isn't, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't
You're young.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was 16. I wanted to go to the bank and get a loan and open up a shop. And my father humored me with the whole process and took me into the little local banker. And, back then it was like, the local bank was your friend and, they knew the family and all that. Well, they probably still do. But, my dad took me in there and we went through the process and gave me these forms and started asking me more in-depth questions. And I'm like,
Wait, I don't know. I just knew I just needed some money. That's all I knew.
Yeah, all I know is I need to buy a mixer and I need a display cabinet and all this stuff. But yeah, of course I was turned down and it didn't work out and went on to school and took accounting. I knew that I needed to be an accountant because I needed to know financially. Didn't finish that. Went straight into more of, I got married and then did lots of things there.
So your step into the world of handbag design and entrepreneurship, this is not something that happened like right out of school. Like you didn't have some big plan and at 21 you're ready to start making bags. How did you get into this?
Well, it's just by fate, by luck. When I did get married and quit college, my husband was an importer of wicker and rattan furniture at the time. And so I was like, it'd be cool to open up like a Pier 1 kind of store. I called it the basket case. And I had basketry and I made flower arrangements. And I just always loved to make things with my hands, And so started this shop. And then from that, it went into the wholesale part of the business. And then from that into more houseware type items, and then I started making, when my kids were little, these little aprons, craft aprons, and I'd put their handprints on them and they'd say Mommy's Little Helper or Daddy's Little Helper, and then I did them with paint sets, and then I said, I'll do a little tote bag. And then the tote bag grew to a duffel bag, a backpack, and then I said, what about a handbag? So It just kind of evolved through different companies that I was with and then ones I started. So yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur.
In your opinion, what do you think made your path soar? Because a lot of folks have dreams about, I'm going to be a designer and I'm going to do, but do you have a key moment throughout your career where you're like, okay, this is the point where I can see the future?
I've always looked at things very opportunistic, like, what could I do with that? When I see something I create or something that's not created properly, that's given me life lessons. Like, that handbag, like, oh man, must have designed this because who can carry this? It doesn't have a pocket on the outside. It's too heavy. No,
There's no zipper. There's no flap. My stuff is exposed.
So it's with that with so many different things. Or like a flower arrangement. I remember when I started that, it was like, you can't find any beautiful silk flower arrangements that don't look like plastic, don't look like cheesy or cheap, and don't cost a fortune, you know? And so it was always just kind of looking at things left brain, right brain, you know, the creative part, but then also the part of, is there a need out there? Would I buy it? You know, could I do it at a good value? So those are just things that were always inherent on I have a good scale, you know, on that aspect, which is hard for a lot of people to have. You know, sometimes you meet people who are very creative but can't balance a checkbook, or people who are great,
That's right.
you know, at numbers but can't, you know, draw a smiley face. So, you know, I was blessed with having both that balance of the practical business side of it, you know, looking at it on that way, and then the creative part.
How did you figure out what your style was going to be, the look of Patricia Nash? Because you don't have like a bunch of like logos.
Yeah.
Yours is more artistic. It's more, it's earthy. It's leather.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because I never even knew I wanted to do my own brand. This was something in my mind that as I started getting older and telling people, you know what, I might retire. My husband's a little older than I am. He's 12 years older, and I might just go back to Knoxville because I worked a lot in New York. I had an apartment there, even though my roots have been here for over 25 years. And I said, you know, I don't know what I would create, because all the bags up there kind of look like the same, you know?
They do.
So maybe if I could think of something that was really unique, I would do it. And honest to God, I was moving my mom out of her house that she lived in for 50 years. And I found in her closet this wrapped up bag, and I go, Mom, what is this? And then it was in tissue after you wrap. I mean, it was like a process to get it open. And it was this leather bag that was hand tooled and braided and laced, and it was all this beautiful full grain leather. And at that moment, I was like, because I hadn't been making bags for other brands for, you know, many years. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And then I realized in my house I had all kinds of frame bags I had collected on my travels in Europe, and that I had always been drawn to these vintage shops and these old crafted handbags. And I was like, oh my God, if I can make that for a woman today, but have all the bells and whistles, all the functionality we need on it, and do it for a reasonable price, you know, maybe that could be a winner. And that's really, it wasn't me like strategizing it in the office or drawing it out. It was just really real life kind of experience, and that, oh my gosh moment, you know, that it hit me.
What has been the hardest part of having a brand?
There's so many I mean, it's not easy. I have worked so hard, you know, trying to get store placement, trying to get your voice heard, trying to get the message out, you know, battling production. I mean, there's just, you know, all aspects of the business is not easy, but it's, you know, obviously so rewarding when you do figure it out.
I was going to say, well, you figured it out because you are in the department stores. What is your biggest success when you look back at your career? What is the moment where you said, oh, I'm at this store, like a little point of pride?
Well, you know, we are in most major department stores, so yes, that moment of pride. It's when, you know, sometimes I do these personal appearances, and to see the reaction of these women that meet me, or, you know, now I'm on QVC and HSN, and that, oh my gosh, I watch you on QVC, or I watch you on HSN, and oh, I love your bags, and oh, I love your stories about your travels abroad or your memories with your mom. When my mom was alive, you know, we used to do this and that, you know, and so we start sharing these stories, and it's become a serious sisterhood, because we all do have these moments, you know, like I've met so many women. I lost my mom 2.5 years ago, and, you know, it feels like yesterday, right? It's very painful, but I've met other women that have lost their mothers too, and so it's a handbag that brought us together, which is kind of just wild, right? Like an item like that, an object, but it's that kind of thing that brings women together. I've had women tell me just this week, I was in Pittsburgh, and she said, I want you to meet my 2 best friends. We came here, one drove from Cincinnati, one drove from somewhere else, but she said we became friends on a chat site for Patricia Nash,
What?
Yeah, and it was because of our love. We all loved your bags, and we started this group, and now we've got this whole network of friends, and we get together a couple times a year, and we all know each other's families and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's really moving. And it sounds a little silly saying it over a handbag, but it's not just about the handbag. It's about those memories. It's maybe about their aspirations that didn't work out, and they just want to support a woman that is doing what they had hoped to do. Or maybe it is those travels abroad that they did in college in Europe, and remember that the doorways in Italy that I created a print out of, or whatever it is. It's just those emotional ties that it's that all of us need, right? We all love that.
Do you have a vision to do more? I feel like if this was the vision board, I'm going to say you can take this one down because you've completed it. But is there more? Is there more to the vision?
I always get a little itch to do something else. I could really envision some beautiful dresses and some of the prints I do. As a woman, middle-aged woman that I am, I find it sometimes hard to shop and find what I want. It's like, why can't they just have this? Why can't they just have that? And you're wondering who's buying all this, right? Because it's not so easy. It's a job sometimes, especially when you're in a career, to find those special pieces or just to find that career wear.
You're speaking to me right now.
Well,
because
it's a job.
It's a gap between like the club and the nursing home that for some reason we're not, you still want to be modern, you still want to be professional, but also a little jazzy.
And there's so much casual out there that it's almost casual, like pajama time casual. So it's really hard. I think there's a real opportunity out there, but then I think, whoa, slow down. You got these grandkids, you got, your husband. There's just so much going on. I don't know that I have the energy, but I would love to. If I was 10 years younger, I probably would jump at that.
I think you could do it. I think you could do it. What don't people know about you?
Well, my life's kind of an open book, so they know that, I'm a devoted mother, grandmother, and now a great-grandmother. I, talk about that often. What they probably don't know is that my favorite thing to do, though, is just I'm a homebody and, love to just hang out and cook and
bake. Do we still bake?
And I am yes, I do. And I'm a bit shy, really. It's hard for me to take all of this, like, oh, Patricia Nash. I'm like, oh.
Right.
So it's still sinking in.
What other parts of your career journey are you proud of? Because you've done, you touched on some of the other industries that you've been in, but we talked about branding and just some of the things that you've conquered throughout your years.
Yeah, I mean, before I started my brand, I had a lot of different licenses, and what that means is that I would go out and got all the licenses for Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, collegiate sports, and I sold them in Europe. And then I even started selling some of the products here in the States, and this was years ago. And when I first did it, I was a pioneer in Europe and some of this, and that's really where I met my husband, and that relationship started. And then I took on other licenses like the Muppets, Nickelodeon, Ninja Turtles. Different,
let me tell my kids.
And then I was exposed to Warner Brothers, and so it was very satisfying seeing how I was able to get that brand and be able to execute a product. That's something that they were very proud of, because when you look at these people like Disney or Warner Brothers, or Jim Henson, when I met him, I was just like, oh, because to me they're just like so.
Icons.
They're icons. And so that was initially a satisfaction and reinforcement to me that you have some talent here. So go ahead and, stretch a little bit and try a little bit something else. Maybe do something, your own stuff. So that was a moment where I really realized I did have some talent. Now what are you going to do with it?
What is your advice for women who are looking to do big things, like you've done big things? You set the goal and you got out there in the business world and you made it happen. What would you say to women who are looking to women like you?
Well, if they're in design and such, I would say try to mentor with a brand or a name that you really respect, to learn some of the trials and tribulations of their personal experience with that, which I did through these licensing people before. And I didn't even realize I was really doing it. It just seemed like a natural course to me before I even started my own brand. So I already had that kind of background of knowing how difficult things were and seeing people who really were successful at it and kind of modeling the way they did it. So that's what I would suggest to someone new to something like that, is to try to model those other people out there that are really successful at it.
Why are you here in Knoxville? You could be living in New York. You could be living in LA. I mean, you could be, but yet you're
Yes.
right here in Knoxville. Why is
Yeah,
that?
and I did. I had an apartment for a number of years in New York, and I commute, and I have offices there still. Well, I used to manufacture all in the United States. So believe it or not, when I first started, I had a factory in Houston, Texas, and I had almost 500 workers there. I had sewers, screen printers. It was a big factory. And it was during the time in the early 90s or late 80s that talent started to be less and less and cost more and more. And at that time, I had a company called Innova, went public, and I bought another company here in Tennessee that had manufacturing outside of Nashville and Springfield. So bought that factory, and so came to visit and fell in love with Tennessee. And just, Houston, love it. I mean, I love my upbringing there. I had a great childhood there, but it is much different. Flat, hot.
Right.
And being born in Minnesota and grew up in the Dakotas, my father from Montana, that was kind of my love, that kind of landscape. So Tennessee reminded me a lot of that. And so I moved here and then bought another factory here in Knoxville when all the Levi Strauss was here, and that course dried up too, so we all had to go off seas for what we were trying to do. But that's what brought me here, and loved it and stayed. And what's so interesting is my husband, who's born and raised in London and didn't come here until he was 50, fell in love with Knoxville too, and who would have thought? Jeffrey Nash. Now he's a really well-respected commercial developer here. And but he feels the same way I do. It's just like home. It's easy. It's warm. It's just a lovely lifestyle.
Okay, so now I have to ask. These are questions that I just have to get off my chest. So first, do you carry your own bags?
Yes.
Do you only carry your own bags?
Yes.
Why?
Well, one, because I think if I'm going to talk the talk, I need to walk the walk, right? But I do love them. I think they're functional and nice. And I don't criticize anyone for their choices, but sometimes when I see the same Louis Vuitton tote on everybody, the one with the string on the side.
I know which one.
I think it's a great bag. It's an iconic bag. And there's others too, from a Gucci or things like that. I have them all in my closet. But I don't feel like it really gives me my individualism, like my unique style. Not that I'm so unique in my style, but I just feel a little special when I wear one of my bags, and I think that's what other people feel like too. It's really interesting because I mentioned this again, but it just happened so recently on Saturday. This PA where this woman comes in, she's got a Gucci belt on, and she had some great shoes on, and she loves my bags. And I was just like, wow. And I said, I have to ask you. I said, what did you carry before me? And she told me, I have this Gucci tote I love, and I have this Louis Vuitton. And I go, that's great. She says, but I just love your bags. They have a story, and they're so unique, and the leathers are nice. And you know what? Some people too are like, you know what? I'm going to spend my money on travel. or I'm going to spend my
Yes.
money on that second home, or I'm going to spend my money on opening up my business. You know, our priorities, I think, have changed a little bit. And it's not so much about status look anymore. It's almost like a quiet luxury, right?
Spending that money on experiences and other things that'll pour into your
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Or spoil our kids to death, or grandkids.
Or that. Yes. Do you have a favorite Patricia Nash bag? Like, do you have one that over the years you just always go back to? That's my favorite one.
It's the Benvenuto tote. It's the first tote bag. It's huge that I designed, and some of the team always says, "Would you carry something else sometime?" You know, I'll have a little crossbody when I'm in town, but in my car is always a tote bag, you know, with all my files and my computer and stuff. So I live and breathe with that.
Most awkward moment while out in public, either just with work or just encountering people who love, you know, who you are.
Well, you know, I told you earlier, it's not, I don't know that it's awkward, but my husband and I were in Knoxville going to Spain a week ago, and we're in line in Starbucks, and this woman starts to say, "Oh, I love your bag. You know, that's Patricia Nash bag. I know, she's from here. You know that?" And da-da-da-da. And she just started going on and on and on. And I was like, "Oh gosh, are you going to do it?" Because sometimes I just say thank you and I don't say who I am. And I finally I felt bad, like I was misleading her. So I said, "I'm sorry, I'm Patricia Nash." And she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." Well, I know you don't know me, but I feel like I know you. So when I meet people and I see their back, and she started explaining why she made it sound like she knew me. And it was just very awkward for both of us. And it was just like, "But thank you, I love you."
I know you said it's awkward, but I think that's actually fantastic. I usually get, "You look like the lady on TV." I think it's a hoot.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Yes, I do. What do you ever look?
That's a great one.
Do you ever look at your life and just go, "This is what I envision. Like, I cannot believe I'm here"?
I've always had confidence in I knew if I could just always worked hard and worked smart and was fair and honest, that I would achieve my goals. But I never, ever thought that I would be the face of a brand. I never had an aspiration or inspiration to be famous or for people to know who I was. I just wanted my products to be, well received and loved. And I hesitated to the very moment to put my name on this bag, when I first started it. But people said, "No, you've got to. People have to know where these designs came from and the stories behind them. And what are you going to name it? You have to put your name on it." So I said, "Okay." But
I never thought about that because, you could have called it anything else.
yeah, could have called a Coach. Who
Right.
knows
A
who
name,
really
yeah.
designed Coach from years ago? Nobody
I
really
don't.
thinks of that name. So, yeah.
I thank you so much for sitting down with
Aw,
me. You
you're
have been an
welcome.
absolute delight,
Thanks.
and thank you for sharing your story.
Aw, thank you.